any other comments here to say that there are only 4 members sitting tonight, so that you would need a unanimous vote on anything? You don't have that extra wiggle room with the 5th person, so I just want to make sure you're okay with that, or recognize that that would be the case. Okay. Then, again, it's the Town of Yarmouth, Police Department, 340 Higgins Crowell Road, West Yarmouth. Would you step up and ask and tell us what your requests are? And if you just introduce, each of you introduce yourselves, and please make sure you do talk into the mics.
Good evening. I'm Steve Bobola, Sand Dollar Customs, one of the representatives for the Town of Yarmouth Police Department.
Frank Frederickson, Chief of Police.
And Bruce Wilson, project manager for this project.
Okay. And just describe the project briefly, if you'd like.
Well, what we're looking at is we're building a 2-story training building behind the police station in a cleared area back there. It's going to comprise of about a 6,400 square foot training building. The building is going to have movable interior partition walls. There's going to be a separate locker room building, so when other police officers come into the area, they can lock up their live weapons. So, so no live weapons will be in the training area. It's going to have secured fencing around the perimeter of the facility, and we're also adding an additional parking for visiting officers, near the training center. The other part of this project is the K-9 training area, which is going to have multiple obstacles training devices for the K-9s, and then there's going to be a officer obstacle course. They're required to complete the obstacle course in a certain amount of time, whatever it is. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's going to consist of some a climbing wall, a window wall that they have to enter through the wall, and then a breaching door, so they can practice that. And the only other part to this is there's going to be 2 covered 12 by 16 covered areas for inclement weather, so the officers can store their gear out of the rain. So, and that's pretty much the whole project right now.
Okay. All right. Go to board members and for questions. Tom?
Yeah. I've looked over the site plan, and I understand, but the building plan leaves an awful lot to guess at, because you say that there's movable partitions and in interior. There's nothing on this set of plans that shows anything like that. You've got a building envelope, but nothing showing internally, or how it is going to be divided and used. I think that would have helped. I understand the purpose, and could you describe what the activities you anticipate within the building to be?
Well, first let me start by kind of prefacing this, that this is a utility-grade building. So being a utility-grade building, it will not be insulated. It will not have any type of conditioning. When you look at a utility-grade building, in terms of the building provisions in the code, it's more like an oversized shed. So, in terms of that type of building, you wouldn't have a lot of petitions or anything like that. So with these movable wall sections, it wouldn't be outlined in the overall open envelope of the building, because they are just that. These are plastic wall sections that can be manipulated to create different types of search patterns for the SWAT team or for the canines. Reasoning for that is because after a canine goes through the same pattern twice, it just goes by memory. So we need the ability to be able to change that up so that they can have different types of search patterns.
Now you've given me finally a much clearer picture of what you're doing. It would I'm an engineer, and I would still say that if you have a floor plan, even if you say these are temporary items that are movable within that floor plan, that would still be much more information than
What
we're shown now.
do you actually have for the building plan?
Elevation views.
This one here.
If I might grab the,
And this shows nothing but the shell of the building.
okay.
Okay? And that's what I'm saying. This is hard to understand what's going on inside the building when you're only looking at the skin of the building. Now,
So unfortunately, there's been so many moving parts to this that you may have not gotten the rest of these pages. You can feel free to kind of pass these around. But this is the first floor,
understood.
which is wide open.
Understood. And there, interior, okay.
Details, cross cut through. This is the basement, wide open here, this end.
Okay.
It's got a half
All right, this
wall
is much more information than we had before.
And then you have, on the last page, you have the second floor detail. Now, these are not utilized in the fashion that they're labeled. It's only for conducting searches and having multiple access patterns to different type of
Okay.
attic access
Two
situations.
different scenarios.
Yes.
Okay, that's much clearer than it was.
These are the movable wall partitions that we're proposing to use in the building.
That's very clever.
And I can speak to what it's used for. You heard a little bit about it, but it's going to be used for 3 different types of scenarios. First, for officer training, how to learn to do entries. There are different ways to get into buildings, different obstacles we'll face, whether you have to enter through a door, a window, through a second-story window. Once you get inside, how do you go up the stairs? How do you get into an attic? There will be different ways of moving into a basement, going around corners when you set up the different words.
Understood.
So-
and this is going to be both officer training as well
Be
as...
for officers.
As well as canine.
Yes, like we do rapid deployment training to, let's say, a school shooting, so we can set up different formations. SWAT training will also be used, which do very similar stuff, how they deploy different techniques of how to enter as a team, how to cover certain parts of the building, upstairs, downstairs, that. And the same holds true with canines, how to get them up into an attic, for example.
Okay, on the overall footprint, you have an area called officer obstacle course. What sort of obstacles are you dealing with there?
They're very, there's currently, see, the one thing that I have to understand, there's already an area there for this. They're already doing it at that location. That is for the regional SWAT team, comes in and uses that. They're required to twice a year do a physical agility test, which includes all the obstacles that are placed there. They're entering through a door, through a window, a crawling section, and
The same goes for the canine area to the...
Canine-
To the rear.
right, and we were already in the process over a year ago of transitioning from the water department over to that area where we're doing it.
The fencing is scheduled to be 8 foot. Is that the same elevation all the way around from the existing parking area as well?
I think, I think it is, yes.
All right. I have nothing further.
Okay, Tom?
Good evening. Welcome. Thanks for bringing this before us. This is quite exciting. Always to keep our people trained and adequate up to snuff is a wonderful thing. Just looking at this map, quick question. It looks like option 1 would be your proposed and option 2 is the second. It kind of looks like option 1 to me is the more,
We're going more toward option 1 right
yeah,
now.
it looks like the better building, yeah.
Yeah.
So it says in my agenda, we're here tonight for the modification to expand the municipal use from the decision back in 2000, which is, it says the area proposed to be reserved for future expansion of this lot, and when needed, it will be constructed. So here we are. We need it, we want to construct it, right?
Right.
So that's a modification to that. And the other part of the petition is to seek a variance for the trees that were removed from existing lots. And I think I read why they were removed, because of some ability to plow and stuff like that.
Yes.
They were sticking out.
Yes, to get an understanding of
Right,
some of those requirements that are put in, and of course, we don't know all the requirements as
correct,
police officers.
right.
All we know is functionality. When we have the multiple vehicles, personal vehicles during a snowstorm, you try to keep them free from being snowed in. You got to
yeah.
move them from one lot to the other, and when you watch the DPW come over and try to struggle to
Absolutely.
move it, it's virtually impossible, and creates a lot of
Yep.
problems for us in public safety.
I've been snow plowing a long time, and I enjoy it myself, and those are challenges when you have those little things, but they do get in the way when you have millions of miles of road to do when you're part of the DPW, so I can understand that. Is there going to be some type of replanting of a tree somewhere when you're done with the new building, or do anybody think about some of?
The new parking area will have, because we're, I think, 22 parking spaces, we're required to put in 3 trees, and we are going to put in those 3 trees in the new parking area.
Are we going to put them in an area where the snow plow won't be, so they can get in and out, and so we won't have to remove the trees? I mean, that's,
Unfortunately, I mean, they, I guess
on the same way.
they have to be, I was told they had to be put in the middle of the parking lot
I know.
someplace, so.
I know.
It's,
yeah.
I mean, if-
According to our bylaw, for every 8 cars, there has to be a tree. And that's going to be another problem, and I hate to see that, they just get planted and then removed again. So if there was any kind of forward thinking about putting the tree,
If there was some provision available where we could plant the trees, but they weren't directly in the parking lot,
Right.
we can certainly implement planting the ones that were initially removed.
right, and that's,
As well as maybe a couple of extra ones,
yeah, we're in favor of extra
simple-
ones if you can do as many as possible, but, we don't want to
Yeah.
put the trees in like we did in the past and have to take them out again.
Well, I just got to clarify,
Yeah.
we didn't take any trees out.
Right.
They died, so
Well-
they weren't there. With no irrigation,
Absolutely.
and they
yeah.
just
Yeah.
they just died.
At the expense of what we paid for,
Yeah.
and then so it's a shame, and now we're gonna go through the same thing. So I just wanna make sure that there was, because we like the oxygen the trees give off, and it's very important. If we can put some in a spot that's not gonna be in the way, and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing, if you look on our site plan, the way I set
Yeah.
the parking lot up,
Yeah.
we're required to have, I think, about 50 square feet of
Yeah.
space for the trees, so those, I've got a 10-foot wide, I got a little bump out, 10 feet wide by only 5 feet.
Right.
It's only sticking into the parking lot 5 feet, so
Yeah.
that, if we have to put them in, that's, it helps with the plowing, so, because we're not sticking out
Right.
20 feet.
Yeah, I see 3 trees, and the first one I see is around the corner, which is gonna be no problem. That one's gonna be, as long as there's irrigation, it will live. But the other 2 are in the parking lot, and, when you're coming down there and you're trying to plow in a hurry, because you have, 90 other miles of road to do, it's gonna be a problem. And then, the equipment gets beat up, and the curbs get beat up, and then you're spending money, which we don't wanna do, because we wanna do it right the first time. So,
That area where the parking lot's going in is pretty heavily wooded right now anyways.
right, oh yeah, I've seen it,
These,
yeah,
these
yeah, I've seen
trees
it,
aren't really gonna,
yeah.
do a lot for
Yeah,
it.
the other thing too is we've made improvements on the site beyond what the trees
Oh,
were planted there.
okay.
I mean, you look at the memorial area where, all those plantings that were put in
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And we're willing, we'd love to have it looking great. And
Right.
it's not like we're this pavement everywhere. We're surrounded by trees and foliage and
Right.
everything else.
Which is important.
But we'll gladly put
Yeah.
trees in to make it look great. And we have had people offer to put in trees for us, so.
We love that. So that's all that I can, and besides the APD, there's no type of, I mean, the bullets are not going to be,
There's no, absolutely no live rounds will
right.
be used.
There's no kinds of chemicals in the building, there's nothing, there's...
Nope.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Susan?
Just a couple of clarifying questions. Is this space in addition to existing space, or are you replacing existing space with this new space? Is this in addition to training area you're going to continue to
This is new.
use?
Some of the footprint to the obstacle courses and the canine is kind of existing, but it's still just out on the ground. So
There's no
there's no
building.
designated
It's
footprint,
outside, okay,
right? There's no designated footprint, and the building itself will be completely new.
right. So the canine, all of canine training is going to be in the new space?
Well, it's the same area. It'll probably just be moved a little bit from where they train. They have kind of free reign of that
So
area
it's
at the
not, it's
moment.
not, you're not creating new space for canine training, you're going to continue to use the existing space, just,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just moving it around.
okay. On the flyer about the walls, it says there's no pricing at this time. How are you going to factor that into your construction budget? Do you have a ballpark figure? Are they going to come back and say this stuff is going to cost $1 million?
There are several versions of movable walls to get. The first version we looked at was about $300,000.
For how many
We're not
wall-
doing that.
how many
So,
For how many?
so
walls?
these,
The entire project? $300,000 for the entire project?
just for the movable walls, yeah.
And how many walls was that?
That was for a floor, one floor,
Oh, okay.
to do the whole floor.
Right, you made the right
However, we're not
decision at
doing
this
that.
point.
That's out of our price range. So there's a couple of options. This is the one that Bruce found.
Okay.
We actually got some other movable walls today for the Phase 1 and 2 that has been completed.
Okay.
Those will be assembled. We're going to take a look at, see how those are. The wall sections we got for those were about $5,000 for what we needed. We need a bit more for that area because it's much larger. But it's still kind of a moving target, but there's a couple of options that we're
But you
looking at.
you have a piece in your budget, a certain amount in your budget for this particular item? and-
Yes.
Yes.
And you hope to keep it within budget?
I hope so.
Certainly.
When we first talked to the movable wall petition company, he threw out a ballpark price of around $125,000. But then he went back and did the whole quote, and it came out at over $300,000. So we were like, no, we're not going to do that.
Right.
These wall panels here, that's a brand-new product. I just got 2 test panels delivered to my house, and I'm going to be bringing them down to the police station next week so they can look at them and, shoot their simunition rounds, little paint pellets they use, make sure they can't damage them before we make the decision. But right now, I'm proposing that we're going to provide about over 600 linear feet of 7-foot-high walls for this training facility because it's a 2-story building. It's 6,400 square feet, so we can put a lot of walls in there. And right now, that they're coming in around $75,000 for that wall system that you have there. And we can do anything we want with those walls because of the way they're made. So.
That's good. All right, but you feel comfortable that you can cover whatever the cost is going to be, whatever you decide to
Yes.
pick?
Correct.
Yes, and for the record, the funding for this has all been privately raised by the Yarmouth Police Foundation.
Okay. All right. And just one sort of long-term thought. Could this space be easily converted to sort of full-time occupancy space? I know you talked about utility, and in the future, if you expand, if you need more training facilities, if you need, I don't know, a public room, is this the kind of space, or did you even contemplate, is this the kind of space that in the future could be converted to full occupancy space? The walls are 7 feet high, so that's obviously not going to be kind of
Well,
space you'd want. but-
first, let me start with this. We sat down with our structural engineer, Mark McKenzie, who did the engineering for the project. So we did the loading at 85 pounds a foot, which we know that commercial loading is basically 100 pounds a foot. As an engineer, yeah, you're aware of that. So we did set the building up so that if it were necessary to convert it to other uses as well, it can be done.
Okay.
Okay, so it's engineered structurally so that it could be, you know, a 100% habitable building, utilized for, you
Whatever
know,
you need.
assembly purposes such as this room, right? The ceiling, finished ceiling heights are actually 8 feet.
Okay,
So the 7-foot movable wall partitions can, you know, they can be secured, and they're good enough so that you could, you know, segregate areas and make classrooms or whatever the, you know, whatever the function was that was necessary.
Are most of these facilities set up like you mentioned, it's a utility-type structure? Are most of these training, because the ones I'm familiar with are sort of full-blown, high-tech, very expensive space. The ones that you're familiar with, are they mostly what you're designing, this utility type space, or is this because of the budget considerations?
Well, there's a couple things. There's, you know, obviously, we have some restrictions with budget. Some of those high-end ones you see that are military grade, they're way beyond what we could imagine. What we typically do is wait for an old building to be used for training that's being like an old hotel or something that's coming down. We get permission to use it and go out there and break windows and do entries and stuff like that. But it's a moving target. You don't know when you're going to have it, and you have to move your training to fit the building. This particular building is going to be unique. It's going to be customized for us. It's going to be very functional for the needs that we need. Is there another one exactly like it? No. And quite honestly, it will be something that will be the envy of a lot of places to have.
Okay.
Very functional.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to, originally, when we first started this, talking about the design of the building, we were kind of thinking about the typical Cape Cod house here, you know, the ranch or the 2-story, and so that's, you know, the 8-foot ceilings, pretty traditional ceiling heights, and you know, the upstairs where we're going to have the attic access. That's why we have some walls up, fixed walls up there, because of the trussing that, you know, we want the officers up there. We don't want them coming down into the second floor once they're up there. So we do have we have put some walls up there, and we have you know, like a bedroom area. We have different closets set up in the upstairs. We've got a mock bathroom, you know, in case somebody's hiding in a bathtub. So we're going to have the fixtures in there, but no plumbing for that. Downstairs, there's a kitchen area. We have some cabinets set up, base cabinets. So, you know, for drugs, you know, the dogs, you know, they'll put some, you know, something in there for the dogs to hit on. So we were trying to, you know, come up with a, you know, a concept. And one thing we talked about for the interior spaces on the floors is laying out lines for, say, a typical 2-bedroom ranch or a 3-bedroom ranch. You know, that way, when they're trying to put these walls up, you know, they're not like, oh, do I need a 2-footer here? I know I need a 3-foot panel here, 4-foot panel. So that's one thing I've been working on, you know, the last couple of days, trying to come up with a layout that we can actually paint on the floor, so that when they go to set things up, they can do that. But
Great.
That brought up I have one other, now they mentioned, I have one other question.
Okay, go ahead.
Could other police departments use this facility? Could you rent it out to other police departments?
Yeah, we get asked that because we pursued other types of training things. Other departments will use it under our guidance. The regional SWAT team, it's a regional team, so they'll
Get
definitely.
paid for that?
Pardon me?
Do they pay you for that?
No.
Why?
No, because in the regional concept, we share services, because some departments
Sure.
contribute other things. So it's a
Okay.
balancing act.
Okay.
Trade-off. Mr. Chairman.
But it could be.
Mr. Chairman, one more question.
You all set, Sue?
Chief Frederickson,
Let's let Susan finish. Yeah.
This is just a comment. I do share Mr. Nicanello's concern about the trees, and if we could do something in in the opinion that we write to address that, maybe give them a little more leeway, or, I don't know, come back to the board once they decide, that I think would be beneficial. If we can do it easily. If we can't, we'll live with what they,
Yeah.
with what they have. And that's it, I'm fine.
Thank you. Chief, it was mentioned that the building is going to be structurally usable, strong, and et cetera. Could this be also used in an emergency, such as a major storm, for refuge?
The way it's being put together right now, I mean, it'll withstand a storm, but the utilities that will be in there won't be sufficient to house people.
Okay, all right, just that question. Thank you.
We're not going to have any running water out there at this time.
Okay.
So
All right, well, it was just a thought.
Be a great place for a yard sale. Indoor. Well, they have their police auction, right? Every year?
Right.
Okay. A couple of questions that I would have. How big is the firing range? How much does that take? That's a whole, interior, needless to say.
The firing range, the trailers,
Is it, the shooting's happening inside the building, right?
the container range,
Yeah,
it'd be 25 yards.
okay. So that
The range
fits,
itself will be 25 yards.
Okay.
It's 3 shipping containers.
The
end to end.
the overall length is 120 feet.
yeah.
That's the area where the officers are standing at the beginning, and then the collection area at the other end.
Is there a soundproofing relevant to?
Yes.
The good thing here is you do have no immediate residential neighbors and town land and school land and so forth around you, so that's a nice buffer for any extra noise, including dogs barking, I guess, that might come from the site, so that's good. There was something mentioned about windows and natural light and so forth and so on. I take it you're going to try and address that or make them happy. I don't know if that's some kind of other variance you need from state code or something like that, but
Like I said, I'm working on the final drawings of the building right now, and I have added additional windows. Right now, I have 28 windows total for first and second floor, and the basement has seven windows that I've put in for there. So we've increased the windows from the original 8 or 9 I had in the whole building. So.
Yeah, I think we meet the 8% criteria for
Okay,
natural
good.
light, 4% ventilation, and of course, basement areas can be supplemental.
okay. All right, just wondering about that. I mean, needless to say, the building's not terribly attractive, but I'm not so much worried about that. It's a functional building, and it's not seen from the street or anything, so that seems to cover issues there. So I think, in terms of the requests, I think it's a special permit that you're looking for, other than the tree item, right? Which is a variance, is that
That's
sound correct?
correct.
Okay. Which brings me to the tree item. It's not a big deal. I mean, personally, I would, we've talked about replanting. I know I drove up there this afternoon, and it's all one large parking area there to the side of the building, and I can understand for ease of maintenance and so forth why you'd want it that way. There's a nice island there, but it's between that parking lot and the main building, and where you cross the driveway. There's 2 little birch trees there now, and but there's quite a bit of extra area, and I think an easy way so that you wouldn't have to put new islands back into the parking lot, that might suffice in terms of the intent of the bylaw, relevant to maybe putting 5 trees in that longer island. There is still a short stub that's that sticks out from the easterly area there that seemed to be just gravel, and that would be a logical place for one, I would think, where you wouldn't have to change anything that's there right now.
I think the problem with that area, is that near the gate?
I'm not sure. It's
Yes,
probably where the
that's-
gate
that's
is.
the one next to
Is
the
that-
gate.
The gate slides open.
Back
Where the
front?
fence?
Maybe now, this would be,
Outside.
this would be this little,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the gate,
There's an
that
automatic
goes,
gate
yeah, the
there.
gate, the automatic gate goes in that
Okay.
area, so.
But I can tell you that island that you're talking about would be ideal.
Is this
to have.
area bare too, right now? Would this area be bare as well?
Yeah, it's all gravel right now.
That's gravel, yeah, okay. So maybe a tree in there, for instance, yeah. I mean, that would suffice as far as I'm concerned without getting in the way of plows so much, even though I don't like to, and one reason we're talking about this at all is we don't like to start precedents, in terms of everybody else. We're asking to abide by the bylaw and have the planning areas within the parking lots and so forth and so on. But I think there's enough other things going on here in terms of being far enough back from the street and heavy buffers around the edges and so forth, so that helps counter the situation. But if we could put trees in that,
That would be easy and ideal, and the benefit too is now we get the irrigation in there, that
Yeah.
they'll actually
then that would, yeah,
survive.
then that would be great. Maybe you could have them in honor of somebody or something like that as well.
We have a
Yeah.
couple that they got stored somewhere for the winter. We have
Yeah.
2 nice trees.
Okay, good.
Already. I'm not
Good.
sure where they went. Somebody put them somewhere. So,
And of these other 2 little tree islands, those are kind of done the same way the previous ones may have been, which, in other words, they just stick into the parking lot just a hair. As long as you're doing that, I don't think those parking spaces, or there are no parking spaces that are usable there, probably.
Smart
So-
cars. Smart car could park there.
Motorcycle, I guess. All right, I guess based on that, I'm okay. I was just going to say, as long as it's like that, why don't you use the whole space as an island? But yeah, if you want to make a smart car space or a motorcycle space, I guess that's not a big deal.
Those are your new cruisers, aren't they?
Otherwise, I think it's a great addition to your facility there, and I think it's well needed, and I think it's going to be a great thing for other towns to benefit from as well, and I think it's a wonderful idea. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that we just kind of thought of here last couple of weeks is we're actually looking into powering all this facility with solar power.
Good.
That way, it's, there's no, obviously, there's no cost, to the town for, the electric bill or anything like that. So, and I think we can do the entire, all the, everything out there we can do with the solar panels. You got a 40 by 80 building. You can put plenty of solar panels up there, so.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, anybody in the public? I got a couple people back there that would want to comment either. I guess I'll ask for it initially in favor of the proposal. And if not, anybody opposed to the proposal? Takes care of that. I'll close it to public input. And any other comments from the board members?
Are those trees in the island, as you suggested and the chief agreed to, be put into the condition on the,
I think we could and should, yep. Yep.
I mean, I think that's
Yep.
what we need to do,
Yep.
right?
And that's pretty simplistic. They've even got a few of them in storage, I guess, so. Anybody else have anything to add, Tom or Susan? No? Then I would look for a motion to be made with
Sure.
what we
I'd
were
like to
talking
make a
about.
motion, petition 4800, that we modify the decision to the petition 3594 for a special permit.
Okay.
And we would accept the variance for the trees that were removed.
Trying to think, do we need to do that separately?
Yeah,
Trying to think.
I think we should.
I think we should, okay. So why don't we have the motion now for the special permit
Yeah, modify,
to modify
3594.
petition number 3594.
expand the municipal use.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any I'm not doing
Okay, we're good.
that. Okay, had a little
Wow, that was a great motion.
problem with the sound system. Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion on that? If not, I'll ask for a vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah, all right.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries unanimously.
Yep.
I'll look for a second motion relevant to the variance request.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, do you want to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to, for a variance on the, due to the replacement of trees that had been removed previously. The locations that were specified here should be advanced for this motion.
Okay. So that's a variance from section 301.4.6 for the trees that had been removed, but the petitioner is agreeing to, let's say, replace the 5 trees that were removed, but put them in the existing island to the, I guess I'd say, the south of the parking lot there. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Second.
All right, motion's made, seconded. Any other discussion? Everybody, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries unanimously.
Very much.
Thank you,
It's a
Joe.
big deal.
Okay, this,
When is completion date, may I add?
Tomorrow.
And I'm going to plant apple trees.
In a year, right? Is that what, maybe it is?
Yeah,
I forgot to do that. didn't I?
hopefully it will be done before snow falls.
Great.
Okay, good. Well, good luck with that, and there's some language I'm supposed to talk about, but I can't remember what it is relevant to waiting a period of time and
20 days. Yeah,
Yeah.
appeal process.
for the appeal process to be finalized.
Right.
Yes, okay. All right, thank you all.
Take a motion to adjourn?
Do we have any other business? I will take a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Motion's made, seconded. Everybody's in favor.
Nice.
Thank you.
I guess,
I forgot to